Hello, I'm Father Michael Patella, a monk of St. John's Abbey, and I'm here to discuss the Benedictine call to respect each person regardless of class, background, or professional skill. How do we treat persons? To answer that, I would like to look at one line in the Rule of Benedict. No one is to pursue what is judged best for oneself, but instead what is better for someone else. That's in chapter 72. While several places in the Rule of Benedict have direct reference to respect for persons, we can say that the rule in its entirety reflects such respect because of all monastic life is based on Christ's great commandment as outlined in the Gospel of Luke. Just then a lawyer stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he said, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" He said to him, "What is written in the law? What do you read there?" He answered, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." To be sure, Christ's response to the lawyer arises from the admonition in the book of Deuteronomy, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Keep these words that I am commanding you today in your heart." So the question becomes one of recognizing our neighbors and responding to them. But it might not be so easy. How do I or anyone else know what might be good for my neighbor? Am I to assume that I know more about my neighbor's needs than the neighbors themselves? The Rule of Benedict does not supply any specific legislation or directives to cover these details. Instead, we must look at the whole rule in its entirety and discern from that exercise what it means to judge what is better for someone else. So often quoted to the extent that it might lose its value is the first word of the prologue: listen. Obviously, we cannot know what a person's needs are unless we listen to the party expressing them. But doing so might also raise some problems. Suppose the one expressing various personal needs has a manipulative streak, or evidences a blind spot in self-perception, or even lacks all self-perception. If one were to heed and follow through on those neighbors' requests, it could very well lead to self-destruction, not to mention the possible endangerment of others. No, listening by itself is not enough. Chalk it up to Benedict's genius, but immediately following the admonition to listen comes a whole section describing the different kinds of monks. While it may not be very complimentary to the careful listener, the outline Benedict furnishes goes beyond monastic personalities and includes attributes that can be applied to just about anyone in the human race. I'm going to go down the list of 4 types of monks in the order they appear in the rule, and follow each one with a short explanation. Kinds of monks. First, there are the Cenobites. A Cenobite is someone who lives in a community with others. The Cenobites who belong to a monastery where they serve under a rule and an abbot. So, for Benedict, living the rule and doing so under an abbot is the best defense against self-deception. All 72 chapters of the rule are really a compendium of the many ways of perfecting the thought and action of Benedictines so they can lead one to union with Christ. And the abbot and the abbess is the one ensuring this kind of conversion takes place. For purposes of clarification, the term abbot refers to the elected superior of a male monastery. Traditionally, in a female monastery, the elected superior would be called the abbess or the prioress. In any case, the job description remains the same. Second, there are the anchorites or hermits who have come through the test of living in a monastery, and they've done so for a long time, and many have passed the first fervor of monastic life. Thanks to the help and guidance of many, they are now trained to fight against the devil. Here, the rule looks to those Cenobites, as people who live in community, who have come to a point in their lives where they have also perfected prayer, thought, and action so that they can truly live alone. There is no self-deception. The rule and their obedience to it have made them charitable and holy. There are very few, if any, hermits in a monastery, but they do surface every now and then. If they are off on their own with the abbot's or abbess's permission, it's because they know how to judge what is better for someone else and not for themselves. And the abbot and the abbess have helped them realize that. The third, there are the Cerebites, the most detestable kind of monks, with no experience to guide them, no rule to try them as gold is tried in a furnace, have a character as soft as lead. Still loyal to the world by their actions, they clearly lie to God by their tonsure. 2 or 3 together, or even alone, without a shepherd, they pen themselves up in their own sheepfolds, not the Lord's. Their law is what they like to do, whatever strikes their fancy. Anything they believe in and choose, they call holy. Anything they dislike, they consider forbidden. You can see how the Cerebites are just about the opposite of the Cenobites or hermits. Whereas the latter stay close to the prescripts of the rule and the abbot, the Cerebites chuck both of them. The ability to fall into self-deception and outright hypocrisy is most evident in their daily lives. To do what is best for them could very well be to support dysfunctional behavior. Fourth, finally, there are the monks called gyrovagues, who spend their entire lives drifting from region to region, staying as guests for 3 or 4 days in different monasteries, always on the move. They never settle down, and so are slaves to their own wills and gross appetites. In every way, they are worse than the Cerebites. The rule stresses stability, the commitment to a place and to the specific community of that place. I guess one can see it as the monastic equivalent of until death do us part in marriage. The idea is that those in monastic vows do not walk away from the challenges life in community brings, because in the challenges one finds the Holy Spirit. If stability is so important to monastic life, then gyrovagues are rightly considered the most serious threat to a monastery. It would be exceedingly difficult to build a dedicated community if a number of the members can walk off at the slightest discomfort. If we are judging what is best, not for ourselves but for someone else, the best thing to do in the case of the Cerebites and gyrovagues would be to follow the directives of the rule of Benedict by strongly encouraging both types to leave the monastery and stay away from it. The Cerebites and the gyrovagues would be happier, and so would the resident community. Because abbesses and abbots are the primary interpreters of the rule, how St. Benedict describes the personal qualities of those fit to occupy this office is of prime importance in judging not what is best for oneself, but instead what is better for someone else. So we turn to the election of an abbot. Goodness of life and wisdom in the teaching must be the criteria for choosing the one to be made abbot. In office, the abbot must keep constantly in mind the nature of the burden he has received and remember to whom he will have to give an account of his stewardship. Let him recognize that his goal must be profit for the monks, not preeminence for himself. He ought therefore be learned in divine law so that he has a treasury of knowledge from which he can bring out what is new and what is old. He must be chaste, temperate, and merciful. He must always let mercy triumph over judgment, so that he too may win mercy. He must hate the faults but love the brothers. When he must punish them, he should use prudence and avoid extremes. Otherwise, by rubbing too hard to remove the rust, he may break the vessel. He is to distrust his own frailty and remember not to crush the bruised reed. By this, we do not mean that he should allow faults to flourish, but rather, as we have already said, he should prune them away with prudence and love as he sees best for each individual. Let him strive to be loved rather than feared. Excitable, anxious, extreme, obstinate, jealous, and over-suspicious he must not be. Instead, he must show forethought and consideration in his orders, and whether the task he assigns concerns God or the world, he should be discerning and moderate. Therefore, drawing on discretion, the mother of virtues, he must so arrange everything that he's strong, that the strong is something to yearn for, and the weak nothing to run from. The section on the abbot is pretty detailed and must be so. Abbots and abbesses remain in their position for a very long time. It is clear that the abbesses and abbots cannot be either a tyrannical ruler or a pushover. No one is helped in either of these cases. They must have that rare combination of knowing to when to step forward and intervene and when to step back and let things take their course. In balancing that combination lies the true way of judging what is best for someone else. Many of the qualities of abbesses and abbots are developed from the sacred scripture's wisdom tradition. Wisdom is where divine love and theological truths and the practical expression of all come together. If all three are in play, then abbots and abbesses and the rest of their respective communities, in following their example, will be on the right trajectory in doing what is best for someone else. A final word. The sense of place associated with a monastery permeates everything in the monastery and everything that goes on there. If the rule and the abbots and the abbesses are so important in forming a healthy way to do what is best for someone else, elements of the rule and their caring concern should be evident in a particular monastery, in a particular place, a place made holy because of stability. Then the love of God should be evident there. To recapitulate these qualities, therefore, we have listening and stability to a community, two things not found among the Cerebites and the Jarovites. In addition, the qualities of abbots and abbesses, especially the discretion in judging persons and situations, can be spread across the board to anyone in authority in any living situation as they judge not what is best for oneself, but instead what is better for someone else. Thus, in judging what is best for someone else, we are respecting each person, regardless of class, background, or professional skill. So to conclude, the aim of the members of a Benedictine community is to become one with Christ, and they do that by recognizing the Christ in others. For this reason, Benedictines are called to respect each person regardless of class, background, or professional skill. And we do that by, in the words of St. Benedict, pursuing not what is judged to be better for ourselves, but instead by pursuing what is judged to be better for someone else. Thank you very much.